Many years ago, one of my friends, who's also a handmade artisan, like I am, said something on social media that still lives rent-free in my head. And what they said is this is in response to someone asking about their prices for, I assume, wedding favors or wedding souvenirs. And the client or the customer making an inquiry found it too expensive for the range. And my friend responded to that by going on social media and saying, my items are not like the cheap handmade trinkets that you find in Divisoria. Basically, she said in Tagalog, wag niyo itutulad yung mga handmade crafts ko sa mga nabibili niyo dyan sa Divisoria na pipitsugin. Ganon. And something about that really bothered me or didn't sit well with me. Maybe I'm calling her out right now after all these many years, but yeah, it never really bothered me. And we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about how I think some handmade artisans, small business operators, are kind of classist and elitist. Hi, welcome to my channel. This is Xarin from Trees and Kittens. And if you didn't know, I am a YouTuber and a crafter. I have been professionally crafting for some 10 years, exporting my goods, although it's mostly on hold right now. But yes, I am a professional crafter, and in this channel, I talk about cosplay, crafting, and miscellaneous stuff. Miscellaneous stuff. And yes, sometimes just shop talk, because I've been doing online business for a while. And yes, I'm from the Philippines. So if you guys don't know what I was talking about in my intro, Divisoria is basically our shopping district. It's very popular to buy supplies. Every different block or street kinda has its own specialty. There's an entire street dedicated to crafting supplies, fabric, handmade goods, arts, and handicrafts. And it also includes things that are adjacent, like wedding, birthday party, souvenirs, anything handmade favors that probably would be needed for those occasions. Now, I have an interesting story about Divisoria. So, about 10 years ago, when I was selling, my business is mostly making cosplay props and accessories. I'll put some up on the screen. And during that time, 10 years ago, I was thinking of making these spellbook boxes because a lot of video games, other media have books, and I wanted to like make these book box props. And I saw the perfect boxes at Joanne's website. Rest in peace, Joanne's craft and art supplies shop in the USA. So I saw the perfect book boxes there. Like I think I ordered three boxes because I just wanted to test out my project. And I ordered it, and then after a few months it arrived. It takes a long time because it's from America, USA to the Philippines. And then when it got here, lo and behold, the boxes said made in the Philippines. So I was like shocked. Like I ordered like from overseas, the other end of the world, just to get something that was made in the Philippines. Hold up. So eventually I ended up making these book boxes, and they were so in demand that I needed more book boxes. And in Divisoria, there's an entire, like I've shown on the screen, there's an entire lane or street that's just dedicated to paper mache. So paper mache books, yeah. So what we did is that we went there to Divisoria, and then we found the exact supplier, the exact shop that was exporting these book boxes to Joanne's. Can you believe it? It's like I brought some of the book boxes I ordered as samples, and basically they said, yeah, that's us. We export that. So these book boxes made the round trip from Divisoria to the USA. I ordered them, and they just went back to Divisoria. Can you imagine that? They made like a total round trip around the world. So what's the point of what I'm saying? Basically, a lot of Divisoria crafts are export quality. And because of that book box incident, I never looked down at these Divisoria handmade artisans because I was holding in my hand something that traveled around the world because it was export quality. So when I saw my friend's post, uh, that social media post, that she was basically saying Divisoria crafts are cheap, low quality, I kind of felt offended by that. Like something inside me was really bothered because I know how good these products are, and I don't look down at these artisans who are making expert quality products. And that experience made me think, is the handmade industry, is the arts and crafts industry, especially among us small business owners, solopreneurs, is the whole thing kind of gentrified? Are we forgetting that there are many, many artisans and crafters that are crafting without these aesthetic studios? They're not in a very well outfitted home studio with filming equipment recording everything they do. A lot of them are crafting in the streets, in their garage, without the expensive tools. Crafting was difficult but often essential work. And now it almost seems like social media is making it look like crafting and handmade products are for the rich. So today I want to talk about a few things. First off, the often forgotten crafters in our society, how middlemen and big businesses exploit them, and how social media now seems to kinda exclude them from the world of handmade or artisan crafts, while continuing to push more well-off crafters for one reason, and that is to sell, sell, and sell more. Now, first off, let's talk. What is handmade? According to the Oxford Dictionary, something handmade is made by hand, not by machine, and typically, therefore, of superior quality. Crafters are anyone who engages in the activity of crafting, and professional crafters are ones that get paid to do it professionally. I am reading from a script that I wrote. Yeah, I wrote it myself. Of course, not AI generated. Yes, I have to I get derailed if I try to memorize what I'm gonna say, but then I get derailed and there's a lot of long pauses. So I'll just be trying to look here now and then so that I stay on track because I'll get super derailed by this topic really quick. Even in this Oxford Dictionary definition, handmade usually comes with the connotation that something's of a superior quality. But over time, this is my opinion. I think a lot of people will agree that handmade has just typically become a buzzword to declare superiority. Some are using the term handmade to declare superiority as an increased price tag, like, yeah, some sort of badge to wear to mark up their prices. But when, in my opinion, the true testament of whether something is good quality or not is the quality. Like, yes, literally the quality. Whether something is handmade or not, a lot of things can be said to be handmade, but it doesn't mean that they're good quality. So just because something is handmade doesn't mean it's befitting of your money. It has to be quality. Expensive does not always mean quality, and cheap does not always mean low quality. Let's talk about something called perceived value. So from Cambridge Dictionary, I'll be reading off of this here. A perceived value is the value of a product based on how much customers want or need it, rather than on its real price. So selling your product at a higher price increases the perceived value because people associate higher prices with quality. Higher prices, people think it's of higher quality. And at the same time, handmade, or the word handmade, has that similar effect to people when they'll perceive it as higher quality because it's handmade. While I do believe that this is true in many cases, quality does indeed come with a price. You have to take more time making something, or you'll need to use more quality materials, natural materials, and they don't always come cheap. I'm also going to be bringing up 2 points that challenge this. Number 1, decades of experience from older crafters means that they can produce more products, more items in less time than a less skilled worker. A lot of artisans in our handmade district, whether it's in Divisoria, making papier-mâché goods, or in the shoe capital of Marikina, where we produce a lot of handmade shoes. Another interesting story is like my boyfriend went to Japan and he got these tabi shoes, which he loved so much. And then he looked at the tag and it's made in Marikina and not in Japan. Yes. So, yes, they've been making handmade items for literal decades. These people, because of their experience, have streamlined their crafting process. Even me, I always tell other people, actually, let me correct myself there. I always tell people, like, they ask me, is your craft difficult? And I say, like, it's not difficult, it's just tedious. Like, I produce small items. Usually I have to make multiples of them by hand, especially when I was starting out and I was just producing items out of polymer clay. It's difficult the first few dozen times you've done it, but after you've done it 100 times, especially you're making the same item for hundreds of times, it feels like nothing, and you can literally finish one in 5 minutes. So the experience, how you've streamlined the process for professionals, they're able to use this to price their items more competitively or lower because you can make more with less time. And then the second point is people that are working at a larger scale are able to obtain materials for a much lower cost than a small business can. We have many handmade artisans that work in bulk, specifically for those who are in the export industry or for massive industries like the wedding, birthday, bridal industry. Their businesses work at a larger scale with multiple employees. They're able to procure materials at a discount because they purchase in bulk. This discount is usually reflected in the final pricing. They're able to price their items more competitively as well. So some businesses have larger resources. They're able to get their materials at a lower price, and they also have more experience. And with this way, they can price their item lower than a newbie at the craft. And it doesn't mean just because their item is produced or costs lower, doesn't mean it's of less quality. They might even be most likely better quality than a newbie who's working on like their first few items and then pricing it higher. It will be of better quality just because you have pros who have made it. And then there's the other thing. Let's talk about marketing, packaging, and aesthetics. So a lot of items, even though ones you see in social media that are online based, mine included, I'm not like excluded from this critique. Their items come in pretty packaging. These all add up to the cost of the items, and some professionals, especially those working in bulk for export, don't put their money into these costs. Let's talk about it in comparison to food. For example, street food versus a restaurant. Like, you can't necessarily say that one is better. This is my opinion, and this is how I value things. There's a lot of times that I eat in street food and the street food just is so much better. And then there's a lot of times I go to like these aesthetic, quote unquote, aesthetic cafes or restaurants, and it looks great. I can take a lot of pictures, but the foods may at best or shit. I've had more satisfying dishes off the street sometimes than at a pretty restaurant. Because what am I paying for at the pretty restaurant? I'm paying for their decor, I'm paying for their overhead cost, I'm paying for their marketing. And at street food, I don't really pay for any of that. I just pay for the food. So that wraps up that point that just because something's more expensive doesn't mean it's of better quality. There's a lot of cheaper options that are also of reasonable or even better quality. Now let's talk about the problem. This is like the problem in my that I want to bring up in this video is that it is that a lot of artisans or crafters are being exploited by middlemen and corporations, period. So I had to like take a break because like my phone overheated because I have to record this so that it has decent audio without my fan on, and I don't have air conditioning, so I was dying, but my phone was dying and like went on a full-on overheat. Anyway, we're back. So let's talk about the problem. And the problem for me is, and the reason I'm actually making this video is, I feel like a lot, well, this is not a feeling, this is a fact. A lot of artisans, handmade artists, are being exploited by these big corporations and by middlemen. My belief is that people working in sweatshops, in factories, in big corporations, these are very highly skilled workers, and they deserve to be acknowledged as such. While I'm anti-fast fashion and I'm anti-over-consumerism, I acknowledge that the people working in these environments are some of the best there is. Like, I mean, have you seen, like I said, Divisoria artisans? Have you seen the seamstresses that are working for fast fashion corporations? Like, how skilled are they to be able to produce items at the rate they're going? Usually artisans in these, if you've watched some of the fast fashion documentaries, these artisans, these seamstresses are paid in a per piece basis, or if they can finish a certain number of orders or garments per day. And this sort of payment scheme encourages these workers to produce fast without giving mind much to quality. It's usually the corporations that enforce this or encourage this because they're trying to pay as low as they can, and they encourage cuts to quality so that they have bigger profit margin and faster turnaround rate of orders, fulfillment rate of orders. But imagine what these artisans can make if they weren't tied to these big corporations, if they were fair, if they were paid a fair wage. Just imagine, they have the years of expertise, they can work fast, and then imagine how they would be like if they were actually properly paid and not just encouraged to make crap. So this brings me to this point. People who are crafting under their own labels, under their own brands, as self-made entrepreneurs like myself. While we tout the handmade label as if it's some premium label, we have to remember that being able to start our business and earn independently from crafting is in itself a privilege. There are many artisans and crafters who are also making handmade, but they're still doing this craft for survival, and they're not in the same privileged position as us who are able to work for ourselves. So yes, we can be anti-fast fashion, we can be anti-consumerism, but let's not forget that behind these money-hungry machines, there's a lot of highly skilled artisans that are being erased. We can't tout the handmade label and immediately imply that some bracelet we made at home is superior to another person's bracelet just because they're doing it under a big corporation or a brand name, or because they have a shop at Divisoria, or because they're peddling it off the street, because they make a dozen more than you make in a day. That doesn't actually make me or you superior. Let's talk about another problem. Social media, in my opinion, is erasing quote unquote poor crafters in favor of pushing more products. Now, let's talk about cosplay for a bit because that's something that's related to my channel. I'm a cosplayer. If you guys didn't know, you can see a lot of cosplay content in my YouTube. And when I started cosplaying, we all kind of made our own costumes from scratch because that was also 10 to 15 years ago. When did I start? So I started in 2010. Okay, so it's been 15 years since. We mostly made these costumes with recycled items in our bedrooms or in our living rooms. That's it. Nowadays, cosplay crafters, especially professional ones, are often shown with state-of-the-art equipment and tools. That's not to say there's anything wrong with state-of-the-art equipment or tools. I have a lot of tools myself. I have a lot of electronics that help make the crafting process easier, and they've been investments for me in my business. And I too would love to have like a very aesthetic, visually beautiful workshop. But the problem is that social media is too heavily focused on, yes, quote unquote, aesthetics and aspirational content. And a creator with a fully decked out, beautiful craft room will get more likes and views compared to someone who's crafting in a messy, disorganized living room or their bedroom or their garage. Social media has a big focus on performance and visuals and marketing, and it tends to erase or not push the artisans that do not fit this mold. That's one of my points for this video. There's many unsung handmade artisans that I really look up to. The neighborhood mananahe, or seamstress, that's what we call them in Tagalog, sewing school uniforms every back to school season. They usually have their sewing or alteration shops there in every village or town. Barangay is what it's called over here in the Philippines. Then there's the jeepney signage painters, the jeepney body artist. Have you seen the Filipino jeepneys? Some of the body art on these things are outrageous and gorgeous. And they would be thinking that these people could be professional artists, illustrators, animators, but they go for jeepney art, which is kind of unsung because it's how do we call it for Tagalog? It's a for masa, for the masses. This sort of art is consumed by the masses and is not appreciated by people of higher class or of a higher income level. This sort of artisanship, is consumed by the lower income people. I hesitate to say poor people because it's too blunt, but yes, these are consumed by the everyday people and seen in our everyday lives. And then signage artists. Have you seen a jeepney signage artist at work? Like they finish like a few letters with a few strokes. It's like calligraphy, but with extra steps and with more expertise. And people perform this or sell this at the streets. They peddle this to jeepney drivers or operators who are also low income themselves. So yes, even the crafters in Divisoria that made me go on this full video, they're knee deep in cornstarch glue, gao gao, which we use for the paper mache items, like the paper mache books that I bought. These people would be knee deep in gao, and then they'd be gluing paper together to make paper mache letters or displays, or they'd be gluing feathers to a pair of fake wings. This is all a form of handmade and artisanship that some people kind of look down on just because it's performed by poorer people, and then their quality is already dismissed as low quality just because of the class of people who are doing this art. I feel like that's so inherently wrong. Just because they're not using more expensive tools or not working in aesthetically curated workspaces does not mean that their work is of less value or of less quality. So let's talk about the conclusion. We've come to the conclusion of this video. First off, don't look down on other artisans. They have their work and we have ours. If they're selling their goods at a lower price than ours and they have a sustainable income and profit margin off of it, then good for them. And we just kind of have to realize that their target market is entirely different from ours. It doesn't immediately speak of the quality of their work. It doesn't mean their work is of less value or less quality immediately. Only quality speaks for quality. Okay, yeah, that's my opinion. Even when it comes to quote unquote luxury brands, I don't look at the brand. I just look at the quality. I don't look at the packaging. I just look at the quality. I feel like quality is the biggest indicator of quality. Yes, that's it. Next point for my conclusion, a lot of artisans are exploited by these big corporations, and I strongly encourage that we support MSMEs, micro, small, medium enterprises, yes, enterprises, and cooperatives that give people a fair wage. And when we're in a position of power, when our businesses grow big, when we're at the point where we can employ people, I encourage that maybe someday we hire these people and give them fair wages. One such business that I find very inspiring is the Common Room. Yes, it's a local handmade and arts and crafts store. It started off as two sisters selling their handmade plushies. They've been in the local convention circuit, and then it grew to something else, something far bigger, and it's now kind of a social enterprise that's also uplifting other artisans. They stock jeepney signage art, they stock local paper mache art to help out other crafters, our local crafters that were from the dredges or edges of society. And the last point, anyone can be a crafter or get into the arts and crafts regardless of limitations in tools and equipment. The spirit of crafting, handmade, making something out of nothing, that's it. And we have it in all of us to make something handmade. Regardless of class status, tax bracket, age, gender, color, you can make something handmade. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I've had to close my business this year because of the tariffs. Yes, we'll talk about that more in another video when I feel ready. But yes, because of the tariffs. So I'm trying to figure things out where we go from here. So your support means so much to me. If you just like and subscribe or listen to me ramble, I really appreciate it. So that's it for this video. I talk about cosplay, crafting, business, and shop talk. So if you're into that, follow, like, and subscribe. Alright, see you guys next video. Bye-bye. Bye!